Madalynn Kainer grew up on a row crop farm in Victoria, Texas. Through her experiences on the farm and her involvement in 4-H, Madalynn knew she wanted to pursue a career in agriculture. During her time at Texas A&M University, she saw an opportunity to work in agriculture, communications, and event management. She is currently the assistant manager at the Washington County Fair in Brenham, Texas. When Madalynn is not planning and managing the oldest county fair in Texas, she can be found reading a book, trying new recipes, volunteering at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, or serving as a member of the Texas Farm Bureau Young Farmers and Rancher Advisory Committee. Please help me welcome Madalynn to Ag Chicks. Hey y'all, this is Allie Spears, your host of the Ag Chicks podcast, where I cultivate connections with the women who are helping feed the world. All right, Madalynn, this is long overdue for more than one reason, I feel like. But I cannot wait to kind of get to chat with you today and not only learn more about you, because we're definitely friends and we've been friends for a long time, but I feel like there's probably a lot more about each other that we do not know. So excited to chat with you about all of the things you are involved in and have going on, but also share your story, because I think you have a really unique one and one that people can relate to, but also very multifaceted. So excited to have you on the show today.
Oh my gosh, well, thank you for having me. I was like going back through all of like your previous episodes and just like looking at everybody, and I was like, wow, I'm like feel honored to be included with all of these other like amazing women that I look up to. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for doing this. So
Of course, yes, no, and you are equally as important, if not more. So excited to share that a little bit too. So let's start at the beginning, if you're good with that.
yeah.
Where are you from? Where did you grow up? How did that all go down?
Yeah, so I grew up in Victoria, Texas, so kind of along the coast between Houston and Corpus Christi. My dad farms, so grew up very much in production agriculture, more like on kind of crop production side, but you know, my grandparents both had cattle, and so we started doing 4-H stuff like as soon as we could. But I really didn't start to get involved in 4-H until I got to high school, actually. I was very much in the mindset of like, I want to play volleyball, I want to do sports, athletics, and everything. And then I actually had an injury at the end of my freshman year that kind of sidelined me. So I was like, I need something to do with my time. And so I started to get more involved in 4-H and do different projects or different kind of, you know, leadership opportunities and stuff. And so I really think that was like pretty pivotal for kind of where I am today, just because it gave me the opportunity to kind of explore more through 4-H, and probably opened up more doors and more avenues than if I would have just continued to play sports. So did a lot of different 4-H stuff when I was in high school. I was on the rifle team. I did livestock judging, beef quiz bowl, different leadership positions like at the county, district, and state levels. And then found my way to Texas A&M, and that's you know, where it went. I changed my major a couple of different times before I kind of settled into ag communications, but was at A&M. I worked for Texas A&M Meat Science for 4 years while I was there. So worked for Extension and then the Department of Animal Science, and got to do all kinds of really amazing, incredible, fun things through my job with them. Was on the meats team at A&M, and then graduated in May of 2017. So yeah, that's kind of the early years, if you will.
Yes, chapter, I don't know, a couple
Yeah,
chapters.
chapter whatever. Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I guess watch out for Madalynn. She was on the rifle team, so don't mess with Madalynn.
I am a sharpshooter, so what can I say?
That is such a cool skill and hilarious, just because knowing you and knowing
Yeah.
your personality, I think that's perfect. And then I also didn't realize that you were not an animal science major, because I think you and I both got lumped into that crowd, even though that was technically not our home.
Yeah, so before I even got to A&M, I had actually switched my major to animal science. So I started out as ag leadership, and then I just kind of I think I picked it because originally I wanted to be an extension agent, and I thought that that was like a clear path to become an extension agent. And I think I kind of had this like epiphany before my new student conference of like, I don't know if this is necessarily like what I want to do and, what other options out there exist. And so I kind of just picked animal science because I had friends that were going to be in animal science and it seemed like a good pick. And I just remember going to my new student conference and Dr. Ramsey was like standing in front of the room and, he made us like stand up and introduce ourselves and say where we were from and then say like what we wanted to be when we grew up. And everybody, I think, in my new student conference, except for like me and two other people, were like, I'm going to be a large animal veterinarian or I'm going to be a small animal veterinarian. And I was just like, okay, maybe this was a mistake. I don't know if this was really the major for me. Like, I was like, I literally just stood up and I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I hope it's something involved with livestock. Thanks. Like, I'm gonna sit back down now. And I just kind of grudged through animal science until probably I think I was like halfway through my sophomore year. And then I actually heard Dr. Redwine speak at like in a class or something, and I was like, this is what I was looking for. Like I had always really enjoyed the communications aspects of things and like always loved my English classes in high school and always loved like social media and learning about social media and stuff. And I just never really realized that there could be like a career path for that. And so whenever he talked about ag communications, I mean, like, I think all the light bulbs went off, like, confetti guns, everything, because I was like, this is exactly what I needed. And I loved being in animal science because I got like the technical side of it. And I loved like learning about that stuff. But when it came to like chemistry and accounting, like that was just not for me.
Nope. Nope.
Yeah.
But I think it's so funny because several guests that I've had on, they always kind of say, I thought I wanted to be a vet and XYZ, and that didn't happen. Which
Yeah.
I deal with that on a daily basis with students at A&M as
Right.
well. But I think, and maybe that's kind of a representation too of the way we talk about careers in agriculture. I think we don't talk about all the other ones. And that was kind of the point of Ag Chicks too, to talk about like, what are all these people doing that are not veterinarians? I mean, I've had, I think, one vet on at the very beginning. But still, like, there's so many different opportunities. And I think showing people in college or young individuals or even adults that there are other options out there besides being a farmer, rancher, or vet. And I don't know if we talk about that enough.
Well, and I think it's really cool too, because like I always, like anytime I'm talking to students or like just interacting with students and they tell me like, oh, I'm really interested like in accounting or like I'm really interested in IT or, technology or engineering. I'm like, if you want to stay involved in the agriculture industry, like there is a career path within agriculture where you can like embrace those other kind of interests or focus areas that you have. And I think sometimes that gets lost too, because I don't know if, I mean, like for me, like, I'm like, if you love communications, like we have a home for you and there's job opportunities and there's an opportunity to really make a difference. And you don't have to, if you want to go work for another, industry or do whatever you can, but there's a home for you here within agriculture. And I think sometimes we forget about that too. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then because you did have kind of a diverse academic career in terms of having the animal science and then switching your major, but then you stuck with the meat science side of things and also the judging team and all of that. How has that helped you to have kind of both sides of the plate there in terms of a well-rounded skill set?
Yeah, I think it was really honestly like it was one of the best parts of like my college experience was getting to work with them and being on the judging team as well. I think it kind of opened my eyes to seeing how my skill set can fit within different areas of agriculture. I got to work with a lot of really cool, groups and industries kind of within the meat science, livestock production side of things, and so. I've made a lot of really amazing connections through that, but I also really got to have kind of an inside look into meat science and just see how extension and outreach and education kind of fit into the agriculture model, if that makes sense. And so it was just amazing. And now it's like, I don't want to call it like a party trick, but like I have just like so many people are like, oh, what did you do in college? I'm like, oh, I was on the meats team, or, I worked for meat science. And it's an instant like conversation starter. And like I've had so many amazing conversations with people who, just like randomly ask me that question. And, an hour later, we're still talking about like cuts of beef and, barbecue and all of these other things that are associated with it. But I think it was a really cool opportunity to kind of be involved with something like everybody, most people I would say like love meat or at least eat meat and are around meat. And so, just to kind of hear people talk about it and get to share different tips and tricks along the way, I think was just really cool. And it was just so much fun. Like that, my job at A&M, like that was like, that was the best. So.
No, yeah. And I feel like you guys always just had like a good time. Everybody was like friends, and we used to make fun of Jordan because we'd be like, oh, what meat are you inspecting today or whatever? But we'd put our hard hat on when we were riding in her truck or mess with her in that way. But no, you guys were such a fun group of people and very knowledgeable in your trade as well.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a good party trick now. So, I mean, it's,
Right. Yeah. You walk in, what do we got on the grill today? Or, I would have done it like this.
Yeah. It's an instant like conversation starter, I would say for sure. I mean, people are always like, wait, what did you say? I'm like, oh, let me tell you about this. So it's a good like educational moment as well, because, it's something that not a lot of people know about. And I've had conversations with people at grocery stores and restaurants and all of these different places and stuff about, just meat science in general. And so it's really fun. I still like do some stuff with meat science too, which is really fun. I've helped with like the Texas Association of Meat Processors stuff before, and my role at the Houston Livestock Show on my committee. I get to work a lot with like Dr. Griffin and the meat science group on that. So it's fun to still kind of be involved and be around it, even though I'm not really in that industry anymore, but made so many like amazing connections and just like lifelong friends from it. So I'm very thankful for that chapter, I would say, of my life.
Yes, no, I think so. And I think, like you kind of alluded to, the fact that you also have the communication knowledge and aspect, I think it allows you to have probably some of those conversations that people may have the technical knowledge, but they can't talk about it to a consumer in the grocery store or those types of things. So it all does work together. Sometimes it doesn't seem like it'll fit, but it always seems to.
Oh, no, I think if you would have like, I don't know. I think if you would have asked like sophomore Madalynn or like junior Madalynn, like, where do you see like your life going? I would have couldn't have predicted this in the ball, but I think it is, like you said, a really cool opportunity, and just having the communication side of things and understanding that. And I love talking to people, so I'm always willing to have a conversation with people about things. And so I think all of those kind of play, well together. Even if I'm not working in the meat industry, like you said, like it's still a really fun opportunity to be able to have those conversations with people and interact with people like that. So.
Right. And speaking of not working in the industry of meat necessarily, but spoiler alert, Madalynn is not an extension agent. She did not end up doing that, but
I'm not a meat scientist. I'm not an extension agent.
You're something so much cooler.
Yeah.
But, and I kind of think maybe even explaining that path will be helpful to people, because there's more after graduating. So you decided to pursue your master's, but you worked for a year before you came back, correct?
Yeah, I actually worked for 3.5 years.
3.5. Okay, so you're like me.
Yes. So I graduated from A&M and started applying for jobs, was looking for jobs. I had always done a lot of internships that kind of fell in like the agriculture communications and event management kind of realm. And so that was something I was really interested in. And I just was kind of unsure if I was going to be able to find something kind of in that space. But that was something that I had really enjoyed in college. And so I really wanted to kind of pursue that path. And so I got a job at Heart of Texas Fair in Waco, and worked as the communications and sponsorship coordinator for them. And so I worked there actually for 3.5 years, and I absolutely loved my job. It was amazing. We had an incredible team that we worked with and just got to do a lot of really cool things that I think kind of set me up for success. It gave me a lot of like really great real world experiences that I could take, with me in whatever kind of field or area I went with. And so I had the opportunity to come back to grad school. That would have been at the start of 2021, January 2021. And so I moved back to College Station, started my grad program, and really just kind of went into it with an open mind of just, I want to learn as much as I can and absorb as much information as I can, knowing that I really didn't know what I wanted to do on the opposite side of my grad program, right? Like I really didn't go into it being like, well, I'm going to go back and do exactly what I was doing, or, I'm going to do this. And so I really wanted to just absorb as much information as I could. I took a lot of classes in sport management while I was in grad school, just because I felt like that was a really good kind of career path potential for me if, there wasn't a job in agriculture kind of when I got out. And so, but it was also a lot of things that were applicable to what I was doing previously. And so it was just a really good opportunity to just kind of learn, I think, more about myself, but also learn more about the industry and kind of where communications and education and leadership had a place in agriculture, probably building off that more than what I did in my undergrad program. So yeah, I was in grad school. I worked as a research assistant for Dr. Holly Leggett and did research with her, mostly based in like science communications, which was really cool and like really something fun to kind of put in my toolbox, if you will, of things that, I kind of have a focus area in, or at least, experience in. And so did that, and then had the opportunity to take on the role that I have now, which is the assistant fair manager at the Washington County Fair in Brenham. So I finished up my degree program while I was starting my job, and then I graduated last August. Yeah, so done with school, but it was a really amazing experience, and I'm really glad that I did it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to grad school like right after school. And so I kind of toyed around with the idea, and then eventually just was like, you know what, I'm just going to get a job, see what happens. I can always come back if I want to. The opportunity presented itself, and I was like, okay, I've got to do this. And I was in a good place at the time to be able to do it. I had the ability to move back to College Station. I had the opportunity that I could, work as a graduate assistant. I had some financial aid that I could use and stuff. So it just really was kind of the perfect timing of everything to be able to go back and get my master's. So.
Yes, I would agree with the fact that perfect timing plays a big role into that whole, whole thing of making that decision. Actually very similar kind of. I realized I had like not a late in life, because it's not like I'm ridiculously old at this point, but a later in career maybe realization that I really enjoyed what I'm doing, what I'm currently doing in my real job, but then also at that point in time, right at COVID peak, right, which I think a lot of people have had that realization, where they're like, is this long term, or what else is out there for me, kind of thing. And so similar thought process in terms of enjoy what I'm doing, would like to learn more. And so that's kind of where my grad school journey began as well.
Well, and I'm sure like you can relate to it too. Like I don't know if I would have gotten the same thing out of grad school had I just gone to school right out of my undergrad. I was able to bring so many like real life experiences, or just things that I had seen or been a part of, into my grad program that I think really helped to kind of bolster my experience. Like I remember the diffusion of innovation class, and I wrote, like, we had to, kind of say like, okay, here's this, research paper, relate it to something with diffusion of innovation and kind of talk about it like in something that you've witnessed or you've seen. And I ended up finding a research paper that was written about implementing a new ticket system, like at an event center. And so they kind of studied it using diffusion of innovation in order to talk about this new, online ticketing program. And I was like, I mean, in my paper, like the words were just flowing out because I was like, when I was, at Heart of Texas, like we implemented a new ticket programming. And so, these were some of the things that worked for us. And so I wouldn't have had that experience had I not worked for 3.5 years and, gotten this real world experience and stuff. And so I just think it was really helpful to kind of go in with those things because I had seen some of that stuff in action. And I don't know if I necessarily would have had that same experience or opportunity had I not worked for 3.5 years and then come back. So
same exact experience. And I remember you talking about that paper actually.
Yeah.
But no, and that's kind of what I was going to ask you in terms of your, not necessarily your transition, but what it was like to work, right? Be in the real world for 3.5 years and then come back and be in the academia setting because it's different for sure.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think it was kind of, I don't want to say helpful that I kind of transitioned after COVID.
Yeah.
So I came back, at the start of 2021. And so I was very used to a very busy schedule, working for the event center in Heart of Texas. Like we were a very busy group. We had a lot of events going on. And so I was used to going 100 miles a minute, events all the time, doing everything. Obviously, COVID kind of slowed us down a bit. But then going back to grad school, it was a very interesting change of pace, and something that I didn't really expect. Obviously, I spent a lot of time studying and reading and writing and stuff, but it was a lot of time to think, which I didn't really have the opportunity to just kind of sit down and think through things and stuff. And so it was a very interesting transition, and I'm really glad that I did it. I actually ended up talking to several people, when I was kind of going back and forth about if I should do this, if I should not, with some other people who had worked for a little bit and then came back to grad school, and they were like, it's going to be a really weird transition at first, but I think you'll eventually really, kind of settle into it. And I think I did. I ended up I wanted to take on more, just because I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to do more things. I want to work more. I want to do stuff. And so I was able to kind of pick up some, random different jobs and stuff around, to be able to just kind of use my talents and use my time. But yeah, it was a very interesting transition, and I think I was prepared for it, but I don't think I was really sure of what that would look like. But it was really great. I mean, it was kind of weird going back to school with people who were basically 4 years younger than me ish. Just because you don't think that there's that much difference in 4 years, but there really is. It's a different world. And, they were either, in college when COVID happened, or, even further into my grad program, they were in high school when COVID happened, especially when I was working with undergrad students. So it was very interesting just to kind of understand the dynamics of that and their personalities and how they work and how they operate and stuff. But yeah, it was a great experience. I loved grad school, and I'm not going back tomorrow, but it was fun. So
no PhD on the horizon right now.
Yeah, not that I can see in my crystal ball. So
no, I get it. If I had to do it and then come back to finish a PhD, I don't think I would have done that route by any means. The fact that I kind of just was like, all right, I'm going for it all at once was.
Yeah, I just love that you were like, I'm going for it. I'm doing it. Here I am. I was like, yes, that's the way to do it. Just knock it all out at once. So
yes, for sure. But I think your comments about just the different dynamics is so true. I was not really expecting that, I guess. I don't know. I guess I just kind of grew well, and really too. So I'm a millennial, whatever, Gen Z, cusp. So I'm right on the cutoff of that time period. And so I guess you just don't really think about it. And I was working with people who were either my age or in generations before me, and never really had to work with people right.
who were, ages below me. And so it was a very interesting, just kind of peek into what that is. And it definitely, I love like thinking about like working with different generations. I remember one time at a Farm Bureau event, we had a speaker come in and talk about, they have a huge family operation. And so he works with great uncles, uncles and his parents, younger people than him and stuff. And so he came in and kind of spoke about, here are my tips to kind of working with all of the different generations. And so now I always kind of think about that when I'm in kind of a professional setting or working setting, of being like, okay, who am I working with? Like what kind of dynamics are at play? And so yeah, grad school is like kind of an in-depth look into like what it's like to work kind of with younger generations and stuff. And that's probably not an intended lesson of going back to grad school.
Rogers would say an unintended consequence.
Yes, yes, exactly. So I was like, this is interesting, but now I get to work with youth more in my role now, and so I think it was like kind of a really good kind of primer, I guess you'd say, for that. So
yeah, no, absolutely, and also I think along the lines of experience, and you kind of spoke to this too. I'm a way better grad student than I was undergrad student. I think just because I'm
yes.
By ranchers for ranchers. Together, let's make ranching easier. Previously known as Cattle Back Box, Strayhorn has rebranded to better match their ability to push the envelope in creating innovative animal management products to serve the ranching community. Strayhorn is rooted in tradition and ranching legacy, but they believe in the opportunity of looking at things with a new perspective to drive the industry forward. Check out all of the things that Strayhorn has to offer you and your herd.
I'm not worried about all the other stuff, right? My focus is this, and I've gotten a lot of time to get this done and then on to the next thing. So I've been a way better student in grad school.
Well, and I think the difference is too is, in undergrad, like it was a lot of, I don't want to say memorization, but like it was a lot of just regurgitation of facts. And then sometimes you would get the opportunity to kind of critically think through something or elaborate on something or provide, more of your thought process behind it. And so to me, grad school is like, okay, you need to have all of this information already. And like, you need to absorb that and know that. But then at the same time, you need to process that information and then come out on the other side with like your opinion, your thoughts, your analysis of the situation, which I think is really helpful and probably more applicable to what a real life setting would be like, or a real world, thing, like taking a theory, taking a concept, and then being able to apply it to what you're doing, to me is probably more applicable, at least kind of in my sphere, right? Then if it's like, okay, well, you have to know all the parts of the, beef cattle, digestive system. Okay, go. Or, you need to understand the, whatever, all of the different cuts of beef, right? Like you need to understand the biology behind it. And then, okay, take a test on labeling them. Whereas I feel like grad school was like, okay, you understand all of this, but let's transform it and think about it in this way, which was really fun for me. And I definitely think I'm more of that kind of student than the undergrad student.
Yes, for sure. Was an adjustment to go from accounting, business type of classes to here's a theory, apply it to ticket sales kind of thing, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I would agree. Great experience, great program, great people. Yeah, so August you finished up, and then what?
So I actually started the previous August at Washington County Fair in Brenham. So I was finishing up my grad program, but then starting my full-time job. So I have been working there now for two fairs, but probably, I guess, about a year and a half. And it's just been amazing. Washington County Fair was always something that like we went to for livestock judging, like in high school. And then I went a lot when I was in college. And so it was just really cool to be able to kind of work there and just experience the history behind it. It's the oldest county fair in Texas. This year we'll celebrate 156 years of being a fair. And so it's really fun. Brenham is such an incredible community, really Washington County as a whole, Brenham and Burton combined. So it's an amazing place to be. The kids are fantastic. The parents are fantastic to work with. Our community support is unmatched. And we have some incredible volunteers as well that really help us to put on the event. And so I'm getting to do a lot more kind of aspects of it. So more focused on kind of the livestock show, the auction side of things, but also helping with entertainment and rodeo and the carnival and food vendors, commercial vendors, literally any aspect of the fair, we have a role in. And so it's been really fun. I've learned a lot. I've had to learn a lot kind of on the job, if you will. But it's just been an amazing experience, and I've absolutely loved it. So
Yes, the Washington County Fair is. I've not been to many fairs in Texas, if I'm being honest, but that one is fun. I have been to that one. And just the county and the area is beautiful. The people are so freaking nice in Washington County. That's what we're set up. We're set up in Round Top right now, and my mom and I were making the drive every day for a while, and I was like, man, I would move to Washington County in a heartbeat. Like, it is so beautiful over here.
It's the best. I was so I'm in a leadership program this year with the chamber, and so I just always like I'm amazed every time that we meet because we kind of have a focus on a different aspect of Washington County. So we've done like history, we've done law enforcement, we've done education, we've done healthcare. And this past one was like economic development and tourism. And so we like went to Bluebell, and I was like, Bluebell's in my backyard. Like, I love this. Like, I could just go get scoops of ice cream like whenever I want up here at the country store. And so there's just so many like amazing things in Brenham, and it's been really fun. I've lived here now like full time I moved here in July of last year. So otherwise I was commuting from College Station, but I just love being here. It's such an amazing community. Very small town feel, but at the same time, we have like a lot of kind of big city amenities now, which is really nice. But it's a great place to be, and I love it. And I could probably, I've drank the Kool-Aid, so I'm I'm all in as a Washington County resident. So.
I love that. Gotta fully immerse, right?
Yes, exactly. It's for me that was like really important. And I think like now I'm really starting to kind of fully grasp like how amazing of a community this is. You know, before when I was driving to College Station, like I mean, I spent basically 2 hours on the road every day driving, you know, back and forth. And so you kind of lose like, oh, I'm gonna go to this, you know, restaurant tonight. That's a, you know, a local Brenham favorite, or, you know, I'm gonna meet up with people. And so I'm really starting to make friends and make different connections and stuff, which has made, you know, living here really, really fun. So
good. That's awesome.
yeah.
That's so exciting. And y'all remind me of the fair dates for Washington County.
So we are in September. So this year will be September 13th through the 21st. And so it's an event. Like we have rodeo, entertainment, livestock show, auctions, carnival, food vendors, commercial vendors. I mean, all kinds of stuff. So there's definitely something for the whole family. And yeah, this year should be a really, really good year. So I'm excited.
Fun. But outside of your job and your full-time responsibilities, you're also very involved in other extracurriculars, if you will.
Yes, my adult extracurricular activities. Yes. So I serve on the Texas Farm Bureau Young Farmer and Rancher Advisory Committee, and so get to do a lot of stuff with the Young Farmer and Rancher program with them. And then I'm also a captain on the Junior Commercial Steer Feeding and Management Contest Committee. That's mouthful. At the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. So those take up a lot of my time, but like in the best way possible. Both of those, so like I did a lot of Texas Farm Bureau stuff when I was in high school. I did at the time it was called the Student Leadership Conference. And it's kind of transformed into a totally different program, but equally as great program. And so I did that in high school, and then after college, my county farm bureau volunteered me that I should compete at Discussion Meet, which is a contest within the Young Farmer and Rancher program. And so I ended up competing in that in 2018 and won the state contest, and then competed at nationals in 2019. And pretty much since then, I was kind of hooked on Farm Bureau stuff. It was just a really amazing experience to kind of see just the work that Farm Bureau does, like not only at the county and district and state level, but also on the national level. Going to the national contest, I got to interact with so many different people from across, the US, and kind of hear about their Farm Bureau experiences and their agriculture experiences. And so it's just been a really great way for me to network with other people, but then also kind of grow as a leader. We do a lot of different event programming throughout the year, and it's just been awesome. This is my second year serving on the advisory committee, and we just have a really great group of people, and have a great group of leaders that kind of guide us along the way. But it's just been it's a really great programming. If anybody's interested in, if they're under the age of 35 and would love to learn more, please reach out, because I'd love to talk more about it. And then Houston, Houston was always my favorite show to go to growing up. It just was such a cool place to be. And I have a lot of family ties there. I have a lot of family, that were volunteers and stuff. And so I actually ended up getting a Houston Livestock Show scholarship through Texas 4-H. And so, I mean, that was just honestly, it was such a cool day, because at that time, you didn't find out what scholarship you got until you got to Roundup. And so I was sitting there just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then it ended up, my name was announced for the Houston one. And so it was just it was such, oh my gosh, it was such a blessing. I get so emotional thinking about it, just because I know how much that helped me in my college career, because, it was one less thing to worry about, right? Financing college is really difficult, and having a scholarship like that, it just really changed. I think it changed my attitude and changed my kind of feelings towards, going to college and stuff. And so I think ever since then, I was like, I've got to give back to the show in some way. And so I interned for Houston for a couple of years when I was in college, and then actually ended up kind of randomly interning for commercial steers, and loved the program, loved the group, loved the volunteers, loved the committee, loved, the staff involved with it, and loved the exhibitors too. And so as soon as I could, apply to be on the committee, I did. And so I've served on that committee, well, really since I graduated college, so probably 6 years-ish. And so it's just been amazing to get to volunteer with them. And like I said, it's such a cool feeling to get back to the show. Probably in a very small way, but it just makes me so happy. And I mean, I'll tell anybody about, my experiences with them. And I just love being on that committee. The kids are amazing, and it's such a cool contest. It's very different from a lot of the other contests, or, showing animals and stuff. There is a raising livestock component of it, which I think is great, but we also ask kids to identify cuts of meat. They have to take a test on the beef cattle industry. They have to do an interview with a panel of judges and talk about their knowledge of beef cattle. And so it's just so much fun. That's kind of my 3, favorite days of the year is getting to work with that contest, and seeing the smiles on those kids' faces, and seeing, now I've kind of gotten to see a lot of the kids grow up in the program, which is really cool, because, they were 10 years old, about to go into their first interview, and they've got tears welling up in their eyes, and they're just please, let this be done, and then you have kids, now they're in high school, or now they're in junior high, and they're like, oh, I've got this interview in the bag, I got this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just a few years ago, you were so scared. So it's really fun to see them transform. And it brings me a lot of joy to be able to see that. But yeah, I love my extracurricular activities. I just think it's such a fun way to give back, and have a hand in kind of the next generation of leaders, and next generation of people in agriculture. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, and you have a lot of impact in all of your roles, just through being able to give back, but also have a role of mentorship, or just kind of aid, I guess, for youth, in all the things you do, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
But because you mentioned the Houston committees and stuff like that, I would like you to, you don't have to if you don't want to. Can you explain the magnitude of what committees are for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo? Because so myself, right, being from out of state, first of all, the majors were this is wild that this happens here.
Yeah.
But then also the fact that all of those major livestock shows are pretty much run by volunteers is even crazier. So if you wouldn't mind kind of explaining that process just for people to understand just the magnitude of impact that these have.
Yeah, and I feel like I maybe can see it a little differently just because like I mean I work with volunteers, right? Like
Right.
our fairs also, I could not do my job and I could not, as a full-time staff member, I cannot do my job without volunteers, right? I can only be in so many places at one time. And so we have about 500 volunteers that help us with our event, but just for example, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo has about 35,000 volunteers that help with it, and they have an incredible staff that help to kind of lead everybody on their way. But it really is, volunteers are the heartbeat of the show, and so as a committee member, I take a lot of pride and ownership in that. And knowing that the work that we are doing is helping in some way. But there's literally committees for everything. Like they have a recycling committee, they have like an equipment committee, so like any of the equipment that you see, each auction has a committee. They have a committee of just people who help with those auctions, right? So those are like two separate committees. They have a signage and graphics committee. Like they literally, if you walk around the show and see something, there's probably a committee that has a hand in whatever thing that you've seen. But I always love talking to different volunteers. Like if I take the tram in or if I, take transportation in and stuff, just talking to people because their stories are just so incredible. Like, some of them, I remember one time I was talking to a lady who drives the golf cart for the transportation committee, and she was like, I've done this for 30 years. Like that has been her job and her role for 30 years. She takes vacation days from her job in order to volunteer at the Houston Livestock Show. And so just like hearing about the buy-in, like as someone who works with volunteers, like that just warms my heart, because I think when you have buy-in and you have people who are so dedicated and so committed to your mission and your cause and your values, I think just it makes my job a lot easier, right? And it makes my feelings towards it, like it kind of relieves some feelings, right? Like knowing that you have all of these dedicated people who are there, they bought in, they are dedicated, they're going to get the job done. I think it's just so incredible. So if you want to talk about like heartbeat of a volunteer, I think talk to like any major livestock show or really any livestock show volunteer. I mean, even when I was in Waco, we had incredible volunteers that just like poured their heart and soul and talents into our event, and I'm just so thankful for them because like I said, I couldn't do it without them. But it's been really fun, and I like kind of the position that I'm in because I get to see both sides of it, and I get to be a volunteer, but then I also get to see the impact that volunteers do. And anytime someone's like, oh, I don't know if I can make a difference, anything, I'm like, no, you are. Like, I promise, like you serving on the transportation committee is helping someone have a better day at the fair, right? If they can have a golf cart ride somewhere, like, and they don't have to walk, like you've already increased their like positive feelings about something like tenfold. Or, if you're on the livestock committee and you help comfort a kid who had a really bad day in the show ring, or, had something happen, like having a warm smiling face and someone to give you a high five or a fist bump or a hug is just like so impactful. And so I always tell people, I'm like, no, you are making a difference. I was like, I know that the hours are long, it's tough, but it really is. Like they are the heartbeat of all of our organizations. And I feel, like I can speak for other groups too, but I mean, I know I personally couldn't do my job without volunteers. And I know a lot of other, people in the fair industry also feel the same way, but.
Yes, no, and I think, not that Texas is better or anything like that, but it's just, I think the whole mindset and atmosphere and support around youth fairs and expositions in the state are just insane. And again, I come from California. Agriculture is huge there, even though sometimes people don't think about that, but it's massive in California.
No, it's huge. Yeah.
So just different perspectives, but I think the overwhelming just like you said, buy-in from everyone is insane here. Like I remember
Well, and
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I think it's really cool too that like, if you kind of look at the makeup of like the Houston Livestock Show Rodeo volunteers, say for example, a lot of them have no experience in agriculture. And they either, kind of got involved with the show because of their, business or maybe friends or family. And so to have that opportunity for them to learn more about agriculture and have experiences in agriculture, I think it's just really cool. Like I think about our committee, which is that contest is very, those kids have to know a lot about the beef cattle industry, and, they're raising cattle, and we have an amazing group of people that, work cattle in the back, and, most of them are ranchers themselves, or, have experience in that. But we have a lot of people on the committee that really didn't grow up in agriculture. They weren't involved in 4-H or FFA, but they came to our auction, or they got to meet kids or committee people who are on our committee, or past exhibitors, former exhibitors, and just fell in love with it. Like they recognized how influential that program can be. And it's the same thing with so many other committees. Like they meet exhibitors, or they meet people that are involved in the rodeo, and they are just overwhelmed with understanding of the impact that the show can have. And so I just think it's a really cool opportunity for outreach that a lot of people don't really think about, right? Like having people in your back pocket who are passionate about agriculture because of an experience they had at a fair and rodeo, or an experience that they had with an exhibitor, I just think is so cool. And you can't, from a PR perspective, right? Like you can't buy that. Like that, there is no commercial time or social media campaign that I would pay for. I would much rather like devote time and effort into those kind of organic relationships than spending money on whatever campaign you might have. So it's really cool to kind of see those people, and then they bought in. Like they're all in. They have drank the Kool-Aid. They are 1000% in. But it's just really cool to see kind of those organic relationships form. And I feel like I can kind of watch it from the 30,000-foot view and see those things too. So.
Yeah, no, you just hit the nail on the head in terms of the direction I was headed, of like, how incredible is it that Houston, just one show, right? 35,000 people who I would say, like you mentioned, a large percentage of them have no connection to agriculture, but because they help or they volunteer, like what a great way to use extension, education, like all of those things that we've talked about in one of the purest forms of interaction.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It just always kind of blows my mind when I think about it from the broader perspective of it.
Yeah.
Well, Madalynn, you've got a lot going on, girlfriend, and
yes.
Probably similar to me, though. You wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I love being busy, and everybody always jokes that I can't say no. So I'm always like, oh man, but I love giving back, and I love volunteering for things, and just being involved in agriculture. Like, if you present an opportunity, I'll probably say yes, just because if it has an opportunity for me to interact with youth or give back or just do something, you've probably got me. I'm a sucker to say yes to things. So yeah, I'm fairly busy, but I will always make time for anything involved in agriculture. So
yes, for sure. I hear you on that one. But as we kind of wrap up our time together, which I'm kind of sad at because we don't get to just talk anymore.
I know. Next time you come to Round Top, you'll have to swing through Brenham, and we can go eat or grab a drink or something. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Okay. I'll text you when I think I'll be headed back Sunday, so I'll definitely text you.
Okay. Yes. Very cool.
But as we kind of wrap up today, what would maybe be some advice you'd give somebody who's wanting to get involved or find a role in agriculture that isn't the traditional like vet, farmer, rancher? What would be kind of your advice in helping them find that pathway?
I think for me, I just started to like really pay attention to, jobs and kind of things that were available. I really thought I was trying to always think outside of the box. And so if there was a brand or a company that I really liked, I would go to their About Us page and looked at who was on staff, or kind of if they had a bio, read about their bio and see. I also really tried to not say no to opportunities in college. I did a lot of different internships or different um, experiences that kind of, took me in a lot of different places, but I'm really thankful that I said yes to those things, because it either kind of guided me in a good direction of where I wanted to do, a work in or a career field. Or, it just kind of showed me that, these other things exist. I always think a lot about like the internships that I did with the San Antonio Stock Show in Houston and State Fair. And I think if it wasn't for those, I probably wouldn't have started to make those connections of that, there was a place where agriculture, communications, and event management could all kind of fit together and be in a place, that I could see myself working in. And so, it's things like that. And, you might say yes to an internship or a job or an opportunity that you kind of get into it and you're like, maybe this isn't for me. There's aspects of this that I don't really like. And that's okay too, right? Like it's an internship or it's an opportunity. And so, in my mind, I was like, I want to say yes, so at least I can say no in the future, if that makes sense. Like I'll get through this and I'll do this, which I never had any bad internships or anything like that. But there was a lot of things that I was like, like I really, really love this. So I want to say yes to more opportunities like this in the future. And so that was just, I think for me, a really big thing that I kind of started to realize is like, I can say yes to these things now so that in the future I can say no. But like, even, I interned for National Cattlemen's and did their convention internship. And so I got to see a lot of those different kind of allied industries in the beef cattle industry kind of on full display within CBA. And so that was really cool to be able to meet and interact and talk with, those different trade show vendors or different people that were involved in the organization, because I was like, oh, like you have to have a communications person. Like that's a great idea. Or like, oh, like you have people, that work in event management for you and manage all of these things. And so just having those conversations with people, most people love to talk about their job and will tell you, about the brand or company that they work for. And so I was always big on just asking people, hey, how did you get here? Or, what opportunities, how did you get to where you are? And, trying to think of ways that I could also do, the same thing. So I think podcasts like this are great, right? Because I mean, someone might be an ag communications major and be like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And it's like, here are all of these possibilities of things that you could do. Or, someone might be in animal science and they're like, I have no clue what I'm going to do with this degree. It's like, well, here are some options. I know you don't want to be a veterinarian anymore, but here's some other things that are a possibility. And so I just think like keeping an open mind and kind of exploring those different things is always great, especially like when you're in college and you have like the time and capabilities of doing that. I think that's just like such a pivotal time. So
for sure. And you never know.
That was like the longest winded advice segment ever.
No, it's perfect. You hit all of the things. Very well thought out, well encompassing advice.
Yeah.
No, and I appreciate that because I think that is helpful for people to hear in whatever stage of life they might be in. So
yeah.
Last little bit here is if someone is wanting to connect with you or reach out, what is the best way for them to do so?
Let me pull up my Instagram handle because I do not remember it. I'm on LinkedIn, Madalynn Kainer. You can message me there. I'm on Instagram, Madalynn_Kainer. Yeah, Facebook. I mean, however, the people want to reach me, I'm available.
The lines are open.
Please, the lines are open. We have callers standing by, but yeah, I am always at the Washington County Fair in September. So please feel free to stop by if you're in the Washington County area. It'll be a really great event. But yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram, I feel like those are my main social media like forms. So yeah, reach out. I would love to answer questions or talk through things. I'm always a listening ear if anybody needs, advice or just an ear.
For sure. And if you haven't gotten the vibe already, Madalynn is fantastic in terms of listening and chatting and just bouncing things off of. So definitely take advantage of that. Well, Madalynn, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'm so glad that we got to do this.
Oh my gosh, well, thank you. Like I said, I like am so proud of you for doing this, because I just think it is so incredible to like have a platform, and you've built such an incredible platform, but to just be able to share stories, right? And, you know, kind of like I touched on, I just seeing people like yourself in different roles and aspects, I think is just so helpful. And so, you know, if someone listening, you know, is like, oh my gosh, you know, I kind of have a similar background or do whatever, and, you know, I'm confused. I think this is just such an incredible place for women, especially in agriculture, to kind of gather, to just hear from other people, to learn from other people. I just think the work that you're doing is so great. So thank you for including me.
Well, thank you. Now I'm going to get emotional.
Yes.
But thank you
so much. Oh my gosh. It's well deserved. So
thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Ag Chicks. Don't forget to follow along on social media @AgChicks for more agricultural-related content, and also be sure to check out your favorite podcast gear from www.agchicks.net. We'll see you next time.